Hello. Welcome to Knapchat, the podcast that looks at how we can put people and the planet first. In this episode, I'm joined by the founder of Rendale Designs and one of the people responsible for reintroducing Beavers back into Lincolnshire. It's Hannah Dale. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So for those who don't know who Hannah is, and I think that will be very few, given your global following, would you like to explain a little bit more about who you are, what you do?
Yep, so I am from North Lincolnshire originally, and 13 years ago my husband Jack and I started a business based in Brigg, selling firstly greeting cards and then expanded out to giftware and homeware and stationery, all based on my watercolour illustrations of wildlife. So I've been doing that for the last 13 years or so, and then 6 years ago we also embarked on a rewilding project on our 300-acre family farm, and end of 2023 we introduced the first pair of beavers back to Lincolnshire for 400 years as part of that project.
And how are they doing?
Very well, yes. So really engineering the landscape as we'd expect them to. So the hydrology of our farm is very artificial because it would have been once part of a big vast wetland system, and it was drained hundreds of years ago to make it suitable for farming. But unfortunately for us, it's very heavy clay soil, so it's not actually that suitable for farming, and we've really struggled to make it profitable. But what the beavers are trying to do is return that hydrology to more of a natural situation, which will benefit huge numbers of different species. And they're doing a very good job. Do
you find that, so we live near you, and we can see it's different now from a couple of years ago. You know, if the sun's shining, we can see it's wetter in certain parts of the middle of your fields, which is it's not just the lake at the far end, which must be down to what they're doing. And then when when we had a tour around at Christmas time, you could sort of equate the two together. Do you find that people are talking to you more about the beavers than actually the broader biodiversity project that you've embarked on? And is that annoying if they do?
I think the beavers are always a talking point, particularly in Lincolnshire, because they're currently still the only two beavers in Lincolnshire. But I think that then leads on to conversations about the broader project and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and the benefits that we're seeing. So I don't think it's annoying. I think it's really positive because it's getting people talking about it. And I think nobody really knew what we were doing. We started it 6 years ago, and we didn't really make a song and dance about it. We just quietly got on with it. And it wasn't really until we reintroduced the beavers that suddenly people were like, oh, this is happening in Lincolnshire. And so it's definitely started a lot more conversations, I think, but the conversations then have gone on to talk about the importance of rewilding, the importance of nature restoration, and what we're doing on the farm.
I think that's. You didn't necessarily help yourselves because you did have like an 8-foot furry beaver at your book launch at Doddington Hall recently. But lots of pictures taken that. But I think that the people talk about rewilding, and that's become a bit of a buzzword. And what I really like is when you and Jack talk about the wider stuff, as you've just done then, taking stuff back to nature, the biodiversity angle. Do you think that people are having those discussions enough? Are we just scratching the surface with it?
I think that, it's really interesting. 6 years ago when we first decided that we were going to take our farm in a different direction, and we really made those decisions based on the land that we've got. Like you walk across our farm and the clay sticks to your boots. It's really heavy, very difficult to farm. And then because of this drainage, the water just disappears over the summer and it bakes really hard. It's just a horrible land to farm. And when we first started to sort of explore what we wanted to do and tried to get advice from various different, the advice just wasn't there. I mean, we went to a local land agent and asked, what our options were in terms of trying to finance something like this. And honestly, he nearly fell off his chair.
Really? Because no one had asked him about it.
No, and he just sort of said, well, most farmers just want to grow more wheat. And funnily enough, now he's kind of a self-styled expert in
right?
Yeah. And I think that speaks to how things have changed over the last 6 years, and how it has become at the forefront of conversations. And so I think definitely the momentum is happening. It's going in the right direction. More people on marginal land are starting to think, well, is this the right use of my land? And you know, I think even people in their own back gardens are starting to think a little bit more about, does it really need to be completely neat and tidy? You know, starting to reassess really how we define plants and stop calling things weeds that are actually native plants that are vital for native wildlife. So I think the momentum is definitely there and it's definitely happening, but there's just still huge distances to go. I mean, the data is very worrying. Like, you know, wildlife and biodiversity is in free fall. So I think things are starting to happen, but it has to continue and it has to happen faster and on a big scale.
I think one of the things, and I don't know if this is in the book that Isabella Tree book or something, I can't remember, or whether it's something that you guys told me, about the fact that, you know, when you think back to our youth, and we're a similar age, you used to drive around in the summer and your car would get covered in bugs on the windscreen, on the lights and things, and you don't see that quite as much now. And certain parts of the country you will do, but you sort of think
I don't think everywhere that is a trend. Even across Europe, it's you know, it's a really worrying concern, and you know, it doesn't seem to be abating, this loss of insect life, and obviously it's the foundation of the food chain. And if the insects disappear, then you know we're going to lose pollinators for our food chain. It's just a disaster, and it really is a huge concern. But what has been remarkable about what we've done and what we've started to see very, very quickly is a rebound. And it happens almost immediately. As soon as you relieve the pressure, you know, stop cultivating, stop using pesticides, things do start to come back and things do start to recover very quickly. So I think it's hopeful. We just need to see it on a bigger scale. And I think, you know, changing mentality, you know, we don't need to use pesticides in gardens. They don't need to be used in public spaces. You know, going around paths and spraying every tiny little plant that's trying to grow through cracks is just not helpful. These chemicals are really damaging, really harmful to everything, and including to human health.
We should be more like the guy on The Detectorists who then doesn't spray his weed killer on the side of the road. He pretends to do it. You maybe don't remember that bit.
I don't remember that bit, but I'm all about The Detectorists.
But we live relatively close, within a mile or so, and we've noticed in the years that we've lived where we are that there are more birds, and that, I don't think that's coincidence, and I don't think that's me sort of noticing them more. You know, when I'm taking the dog for a walk and doing a loop around, it's definitely having that knock-on effect. But it can't happen in isolation, can it? It can't just be that, you know, Low Farm has got it, is doing this and nobody else is, and that's, oh, well done you guys, you planted how many, 40, 50,000 trees, something like that, you know. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that's been a big learning, I think, over the past few decades, that, you know, we've got these nature reserves of the islands of biodiversity, and actually life is dwindling even there because you need it connected to a wider landscape. And so I think the rewilding movement really is about connecting big landscapes. It talks about scale, you know, that is really key to it. And nature needs scale in order to recover. So, you know, what we're doing on our farm, we are seeing really amazing results. And what you've just said about your own observations, you know, we've got people in the village telling us very regularly that they are hearing more birdsong along the lanes, they're seeing more wildlife in their gardens. Last year, there were more house martins nesting in the village than had been seen for many years. And, you know, anecdotally, we'd like to think that that's because they've got now more insects to feed on because of what we're doing on the farm. There are more bats in the village for a similar reason. And we're seeing that backed up by the data. So we're doing as much surveying as we can on the farm as well to measure the impact of what we're doing, make sure that it's having the impact that we want it to. And, you know, we think we've doubled the number of species of bird that are on the farm. We had 40 nesting territories of skylark last year. 3 nesting territories of lapwing, which we hadn't had on the farm for many years. Lots of other red-listed species like linnets, grey partridge, yellow hammers, all doing really well. Insects as well, we're starting to see a rebound. On the ponds that we put in about 3 years ago, we had 19 species of dragonfly and damselfly, which is really remarkable for a new pond. So we're seeing everything is kind of coming together, but as you say, there's not really any point in having it in one little pocket. So what I'd really hope through what we're doing is to be able to talk to the community and, you know, try and encourage other people to create this connected, joined-up landscape in their own gardens and maybe on marginal farmland as well, where it's not really
productive, not really doing a great job for producing food. And on those strips, we can create corridors and join up other islands, and that really will have a big impact for wildlife.
And it does help, doesn't it? So you can, and we're both operating in the agricultural world in one way or another. And if you try to bang the drum too hard, then people won't listen. They'll push back to more than they would ordinarily. I think that the messaging around biodiversity and actually returning stuff to nature, helping crop growth. Yes, it's probably not going to help instantly as much as chucking a load of ferton would do, but in the long term, you've got to have some areas that are playing that long game, and that will be for the benefit of our food chain.
I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest threat to food security is the collapse in the natural world. We need healthy soils to be able to grow food in. We need clean water. We need clean air. All of these things we're in danger of losing, and we really need to readdress that balance in order to protect our own food security. So I think it has to go hand in hand. Yeah. I think the argument of food production versus nature recovery is really not helpful at all. It has to be both. We have to be able to produce food, and we have to be able to protect and restore the nature that we have. Otherwise, we won't have anything.
And this isn't a recent thing for you, though, is it? Because did you study zoology at university?
Yeah, I studied zoology at university, and then done quite a few other different things, and started a business. And I suppose really it's funny how life takes you in different directions that you never really intended. I never intended on starting a business. It really was the furthest thing from my mind, and it was the circumstances that we were in that led to starting that business. And
it seems to have gone passably.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's okay.
I mean, honestly, when I was painting greeting card designs at the kitchen table with a toddler and a baby and trying to juggle everything that was going on at the time, and if you just said, "Oh, this is where you'll be in 13 years," I probably would have not believed you at all.
But I think that's one of the beautiful things about setting up a business almost accidentally, because you tried a few different you tried a few different ways to express. Because I don't want to blow smoke. You're a talented artist. Very bright. Academically and all that sort of things, and clearly astute when it comes to running the business. And so you tried a few different things, and the greetings cards, and then expanded out into that. And your love of nature comes through in every single piece of artwork that you've done, and then it gets applied through the business. So sort of turning your farm into a sort of a natural landscape, inspiring you, and then it's all feeding itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it does feel amazing to be in this situation now where we're able to use the success of Rendale to give back to nature recovery and to be doing what we are doing on the farm. And then in turn, that then feeds the inspiration and drives the business in terms of the new designs that are coming through. So it does. It feels like the closing of a circle, which is very satisfying, really. But I think when we started the business, I was very fortunate to be able to combine. I'd always enjoyed art. It has always been something that had been a hobby and something that had been a big part of my life, really, since I was a child, with that love of wildlife. And actually, when I was doing my degree, it really probably started about then, when I'd be sitting doing field work and I'd always take a sketchbook with me and drawing animals from life and having that experience of trying to capture that like fleeting moments and movement on the sketchbook there kind of fed then into what I started when Rendale started. So I think, it's all kind of come together in a really nice way that I'm able to combine the two great passions and then feed that back into restoring nature, which is just a dream, really. And I'm enjoying being able to get back involved with surveying and doing the children just think I'm weird, basically, because I like poking around in poo and finding different fungus things that, just all that's really excites me. And I can't even tell you how the ponds that we've dug are absolutely full of toads at the minute. Yeah. Full of toads. Hundreds and hundreds of toads. I've never seen anything like it. Wow. And it's like like made my month. It makes me so happy. And I'm just going out there all the time to look at them because I'm so pleased. It's just so exciting to see. And Jack came out yesterday afternoon. He's not quite as excited about toads as I am. But
he expresses it in a different way.
He expresses it in a different way. But he came out with me yesterday and he was looking at, it's hundreds. You must come and have a look. It's really quite impressive. He was just like, God, this is what abundance looks like. Okay. And it goes back to this feeling that we have forgotten what abundance is.
Yeah.
Like we think that you see one toad in a pond and a bit of toad spawn and that's fine. It's not. That's what nature shouldn't be like that. There should be hundreds of toads.
Yeah.
And
if they couldn't sustain themselves, they wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
So nature will level itself
and then
out.
you know the overabundance of toads will then start attracting herons and egrets and birds and otters and things that will feed on the toads, and that'll start to address the balance again. You start to build these relationships and networks back up. But we had one of the probably year 2, we had a patch of thistles on the farm, because obviously when you start to go down this route, these pioneer species like thistles and ragwort do start to dominate. And we walked past this patch of thistles, and we think about 1,500 meadow brown butterflies just lifted from these thistles. It was a huge cloud of butterflies. It was incredible. And again, we've forgotten that kind of abundance should exist in our landscape. We just don't see it anymore. And there's this thing called shifting baseline syndrome, where because we're used to seeing 2 or 3 butterflies on a buddleia in our garden, we think that's okay and normal. And we've forgotten what it should be like. And then the next generation will probably see, 1 or 2 butterflies and they'll think that's normal. And actually, because we become so quickly acclimatised to the current situation, we've forgotten what we've lost. Yeah. And every generation it starts to get less and less. And, there's so much evidence throughout history, of what it would have been like and what we have lost. And it was just a little reminder when you see this kind of abundance in nature, that this is what we should be aiming for. So
often you find generations don't listen to the older generations, because the older ones are like, back in my day there were 10,000 butterflies on a bush, and we're like, well, whatever, you're just misremembering. So it'd be those kind of very visual, obvious indicators, as well as you poking around in poo and counting toads. Is that what a zoology degree is?
Yeah, more or less.
I don't think I've ever asked you what zoology is as a degree. Maybe it's an entirely different podcast. So alongside all of this, you have Rendale Designs, which in itself is focused on sustainability, isn't it? Do you talk about the B Corp side of things?
Yeah, so it's always been a key core value, I suppose, for us as we've grown Rendale. And from the very beginning, the first product that we did were greeting cards, and sourcing sustainable board was the first, one of the first things we did. And we still actually use the same paper for our cards that we did on day one, and it's milled in the Lake District. It's FSC certified, so made from sustainably sourced wood. And as the business has grown, we've applied that as much as we can, really, throughout every level of the business. So and becoming B Corp certified was a big part of that. An acknowledgement really of our focus and our values and the way that we try to manage our business.
How long are you on that sort of process for, from when you decided, right, we need to get this validation, to when it came through?
There's a lot of work in getting B Corp certified. So I think it was at least 2 or 3 years, I would say, and it's mainly kind of documenting what we're doing. There's a huge workload, as it should be, because it shouldn't be something that's easy to achieve. It should be a high bar for it. But a lot of the things that it asked for, we were already doing. And then there were other things, the whole point of B Corp as well is that you're constantly improving. So, we did make other improvements to reach their minimums, and then you've got to also continue to improve. So to get recertified every 3 years, you have to improve over the last one. So, and there's a huge part of environmental sustainability for B Corp. So, we've eliminated pretty much plastic from all of our packaging, and we're also using recycled material where we can in packaging and also in products themselves. So recycled materials for textiles and things like that.
It's a massive amount of work to research that and to find, and I suppose sort of go all the way through any particular supplier's journey. Are they actually who they say they are? And do you have a team of people?
We do. That? We wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have the probably be getting to the scale that we've got to, we've got lots of support, and we've got big teams that are able to put the time and effort into it. But absolutely, it's not a cheap way of doing business. We absolutely have more headcount because we want to do things in the right way. We want to make sure that everything is as good as it can be. So it's not easy, but I think probably it should be easier for businesses to be able to operate in a more sustainable way. So I think that's definitely changes that we need to make as a society and as a business society. It shouldn't be as hard as it is, but it's important to us, and it's important to everybody who works for us. I think we all are very much aligned in making things as sustainable as they can be. And you mentioned people and planet, and trying to give back to the community as well. And personally, I often go into schools and talk to children about careers in creative industries, also about now more and more about the rewilding, people far more interested in beavers. We're supporters of the North Lincolnshire Children's Literacy Trust. I'm a trustee of that charity, and we as a business support them as well.
And what does that do?
So it's focused on trying to improve literacy levels in children in the area, because it's been identified as a region that has poor literacy levels in some areas. We're doing a lot of work trying to encouraging children to read for pleasure, really, which is so important. And I think there's so many outcomes in life that are correlated to children that are read for pleasure, basically. So trying to get more and more children reading.
It's good. Going back to the B Corp thing, one of the things, elements of it is profit. As a business, you're there to make profit, and then it's what you do with it. And I don't think we should shy away from successful businesses and the impact that they can have on communities and on the planet, and the fact that sustainability is probably a word that we in time won't be using as much, because it's not about sustaining, it's more about making it better. And I think that's what your business is doing a heck of a lot of at the moment, where and into the future, where you're setting yourselves up to have that positive impact on the planet and on the people around your business and the organisations that you have. Do you find it, just as on a final point, do you find when you're going to trade shows and things like, you, not you necessarily personally, but your business does a fair few things like that, is it a consideration about the kind of the miles that you cover and sort of weighing up whether it's something you need to do, or the expectations?
We're trying to incorporate those considerations really into every decision that we make as a business. Measuring our carbon footprint, measuring that impact that we're having, and really making measured decisions, I suppose, about, is it necessary, is there a better way of doing it? I think, like you say, we have to be a profitable business in order to keep continuing. We wouldn't be able to pay our staff and our suppliers and without being profitable. So it is about managing those decisions, but I think the key thing is asking the questions and making the decisions accordingly, really. And we're trying to do that more and more every level of the business and in every department, to make sure that we are making the right decisions.
I think that's setting a really positive example to people. You don't have to, there's no such thing as just getting it right. It's it's doing as much as you can based on what you have to work with, and always trying to improve, so that what the impact that you're having is less and less, or the negative impact they're having is less and less, and the positive impact continues to grow, and that you tell people about it, and you write books about your experiences and things like that, which is something that not necessarily everybody would occur or be able to do. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us, sharing all your insight. I mean, I guess this podcast could probably have gone on for about 5 days if we'd really got going, but we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.